Harry didn't expose his life because he lost control. He did it because he understood control better than people think.
Prince Harry has likened his upbringing to being in a zoo in a fresh attack on his family. The Duke of Sussex made the remark on a popular American podcast while discussing the effect royal life had on his health.
From the moment Prince Harry began publicly detailing his flaws, addictions, insecurities, and private family conflicts, he made a deliberate move that stripped everyone else of leverage over him. In institutions built on hierarchy and silence, secrets are power.
If I've experienced some form of pain or suffering because of the pain or suffering that perhaps my father or my parents had suffered, I'm going to make sure that I break that cycle.
Harry didn't give that power away, he destroyed it. If there were genuinely devastating skeletons in Harry's closet, criminal behaviour, financial corruption, or anything that could permanently end his credibility, it is almost impossible to believe the palace would have protected him after he detonated the institution's image. This is not a family known for mercy when reputation is threatened. If King Charles III or Prince William had material capable of discrediting Harry entirely, the press would not still be speculating. It would have been leaked years ago, especially after the publication of Spare. The silence that followed isn't accidental, it's revealing. Harry spent his entire life inside a system where information is currency. He watched how stories were planted, corrected, buried, or allowed to grow depending on who benefited. He watched how silence was rewarded and how resistance was punished. He watched people take blame for institutional failures because it was easier than challenging the machine. And he learned one brutal truth early on. If you don't tell your story first, someone else will tell it for you on their terms. That's why Harry chose full exposure instead of selective denial. He didn't try to look perfect. He didn't try to preserve mystique. He admitted to drug use. He admitted to jealousy. He admitted to resentment, confusion, and emotional instability. On the surface, it looked self-destructive. In reality, it was the fastest way to close every possible door others could later slam shut. Oversharing isn't weakness when it's voluntary, it's inoculation. You cannot blackmail someone with information they've already released. You cannot threaten exposure when exposure has already happened. Harry didn't remove criticism, he removed leverage. And that distinction matters more than people are willing to admit.
His privilege and the challenges his father faced.
Suddenly I started to piece it all together and go, okay, so this is where he went to school. This is what happened. I know this bit about his life. I also know that's connected to his parents.
Yeah.
So that means that he's treating me the way that he was treated.
This is where many critics misread the situation entirely. They argue Harry destroyed his own credibility by making himself look flawed. But credibility is not built on perfection. It's built on consistency. Harry never positioned himself as a saint. He positioned himself as human. And once someone does that publicly, institutions lose their ability to quietly discipline them through implication and threat. The entry of Meghan Markle accelerated this shift in ways that are often misunderstood. This wasn't about manipulation or control, it was about worldview. Meghan came from an environment where silence is not virtue, it's vulnerability. In Hollywood, if you don't control the narrative, it controls you. Damage isn't caused by speaking, it's caused by being framed while you stay quiet. Meghan recognised something immediately that Harry had been conditioned to tolerate. The royal family's most effective weapon wasn't rules, titles, or protocol. It was selective leaking paired with institutional silence. Harry had grown up accepting that system. Meghan questioned it. And once it was questioned, it became impossible to unsee. From that point forward, Harry faced a choice. Continue absorbing pressure quietly, and hope protection arrived eventually, or speak now, loudly, and remove the threat entirely. He chose the second option, and that choice permanently altered the balance of power. Notice what didn't happen after Harry spoke. There was no decisive palace rebuttal, no detailed factual dismantling of his claims, no catastrophic counter-exposé. Instead, the response shifted to tone policing and fatigue. Why won't he move on? Why does he keep talking?
Michael,
Do you think you could have done it if you were the oldest?
I don't know the answer to that.
Why can't he let it go? Those aren't legal or factual arguments. They're emotional reactions to someone refusing to resume obedience. If Harry were lying in a way that mattered legally or institutionally, silence would not be the response. Precision would be. Documentation would be. The palace knows how to brief. It knows how to destroy credibility when necessary. The fact that it didn't is more telling than any denial. That doesn't mean Harry is always accurate. He isn't. He exaggerates, he compresses timelines. He speaks emotionally rather than surgically. But emotional delivery doesn't invalidate structural truth. The broad pattern he describes, selective protection, scapegoating, and hierarchy enforced through silence, has been documented for decades by people far less controversial than Harry. The deeper issue is this: Harry broke the unwritten contract. Royals are allowed to suffer, but not to explain why. They are allowed to be unhappy, but not to narrate it. They are allowed to struggle, but not to disrupt the illusion.
Joining us now is ABC News royal contributor Victoria Murphy. Victoria, thanks so much for your time tonight. Let's talk specifically about the fact that Harry and Meghan both made it clear that the Queen was always kind to them, yet they were rather critical of both Charles and William. Family dynamics are always complicated. Where do these relationships go from here?
Harry didn't just leave. He narrated his departure, and that was the real transgression. People who argue that Harry should have handled everything privately ignore a crucial reality. Private handling is only effective when power is balanced. When one side controls the press, the lawyers, and the institutional memory, privacy becomes a trap. Harry understood that too late once already with his mother. He wasn't going to make the same mistake twice. By putting everything on the table, Harry ensured there would be no quiet meetings, no implied warnings, no "be careful or this comes out." It already had. He forced every conflict into the open, where it had to be argued publicly instead of managed quietly. That is why his choice was so destabilising. And this is why the conversation refuses to die. Because despite years of outrage, mockery, and fatigue, the promised downfall never arrived. Harry wasn't exposed. He wasn't discredited beyond repair. He wasn't erased. What happened instead was something institutions hate even more: normalisation. His flaws became known, absorbed, and neutralised. Power depends on asymmetry. Harry flattened it. This doesn't make him a hero, it makes him strategic. And strategy doesn't require likability to be effective.
Expected the late Princess Diana also played a role in all of this, from Harry saying that his inheritance from her paid for their security to Meghan wearing her bracelet during the interview. What do you see as the parallels between Diana's relationship with the royal family and now, in particular, with her son and his wife?
It requires timing, scale, and commitment. Harry committed fully. Half measures would have failed. Total exposure didn't. That's the part people still struggle with. They want to believe Harry talked too much because he had something worse to hide. But history usually shows the opposite. People with truly dangerous secrets stay controlled, lawyered, and silent. People without them talk freely and sometimes foolishly. Harry chose foolish openness over dangerous silence. The most telling detail in this entire saga isn't what Harry revealed. It's what no one else could add afterward. No final blow ever came. Just commentary, just annoyance, just calls for him to disappear. And that tells you everything. Harry didn't burn bridges because he wanted attention. He burned them so they couldn't be used against him. He made sure that whatever people thought of him, no one would ever destroy him quietly again. That isn't the story of a man unravelling. It's the story of someone who understood exactly how power works and chose the only exit that left him standing.